Band 6B. So today my team are going to present about the topic Rhetorical Research in Communication Studies, and I will start my part with definition and background. So enjoy. So before we delve more into what is rhetorical research, we need to know what is rhetoric. So rhetoric is the study and practice of communication that persuades, informs, inspires, or entertains target audience in order to change or reinforce belief, values, habits, or action. And I could say that rhetoric is basically the strategic use of communication to accomplish purposes with a target audience. And it can be used to enhance truthful and honest message. So now we are going to learn what is rhetorical research. So rhetorical research evaluates how well a spoken or written work accomplishes its purpose by examining the techniques the creator used to persuade. Also, rhetorical research is an analysis of how the parts in communication work together to create a certain effect, whether to persuade, entertain, or inform to their target audience. And the third one is that any act of communication that is intended to alter someone's perspective can be rhetorically analyzed. And this includes speeches, advertisement, social media posts, work of art, everything that is in the communication scope. Now we're going to ask why people do rhetorical research. The purpose of rhetorical research is to make an argument about how an author, a speaker, or writer convey their message to a particular audience. So you are exploring the author, the speaker, the writer goals, and you are describing the techniques or the tool used by them and providing example of those techniques. And you are also analyzing the effectiveness of those techniques in their message. Lastly, remember, when doing a rhetorical research, you are not saying whether or not you agree with the argument, but instead, you are discussing how that rhetorician made the argument and whether or not the approach used is successful towards the target audience.
Assalamualaikum. My name is DANIYAH binti RAZI. My matric number is 056141 and I am from Band 6B. Thank you, AZLIN, for your amazing presentation. Now we will move on to my part, which is procedures for conducting rhetorical research in communication studies. There are a few procedures that we need to follow when we are doing rhetorical research. The first one is determine focus of study. Determining the focus of a study can help you demonstrate a good understanding of the topic. For instance, you will be focusing on political speeches, television shows or genres, movies or movie genres, and commercials. By identifying what aspect of human communication interests us and make that the focus of inquiry, we can begin developing and narrowing down the important details of the studies. The second procedure is choose a rhetorical research method. Choosing a suitable rhetorical research method can help evaluate and critique rhetorical acts or messages. Communication studies often utilize three primary methodologies, which are qualitative, quantitative, and rhetorical. Quantitative research includes the usage of numbers and measurement, such as experiments and surveys. Qualitative research is based on human experience and opinion, and it involves interviews, participant observation, and focus groups. Rhetorical research methodologies is a type of textual analysis where we need to analyze, critique the persuasive power of messages within the text, and it usually involves mixed methods. This helps us better determine how and why messages are effective or ineffective, as well as the outcomes of messages on audience. The third procedures that we need to follow when we are conducting a rhetorical research is analyze the message of focus. By using a particular method, you can evaluate the message of focus in a rhetorical research. For example, you can do critical reading and content analysis to figure out the message of focus. It will help you discover the various rhetorical devices the text uses and helps focus on important information to the text. Number 4 is interpret the implications of the rhetorical acts. Evaluate the author's success in using rhetorical acts to reach their goals and purposes. So the speaker or the authors can restate information. Next procedures that we need to follow when we are conducting a rhetorical research is pay attention to language. So how do we need to pay attention to language is we need to examine the author's diction and how they transition their ideas between topics. We can use this question to back up our thesis. Does the word choice the authors uses clarify or enforce their point? Or does the language the writer uses distract from the overall message? Do they use language to elicit a particular emotional response? Are there too many literary devices or not enough? How does each writing strategy help or hurt the author's purpose? You can use this example to back up your research and to make it stronger. Finally, after following all the procedures that I have stated, we will share the results of research. From sharing research comes the opportunity to improve our ability to create and evaluate effective messages. We can also use what we learn from rhetorical research to shape the ways messages are constructed and delivered. I hope all of you understand what are the procedures in conducting rhetorical research in communication studies. Thank you, and I will pass this presentation to NORSYAHIDA.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NORSYAHIDA binti Ramli. My matric number is 056342 and I'm from Band 6B. Let's have a look at the challenges that researchers might face while conducting a rhetorical research in a communication study. There are some problems or issues that might occur when you conduct a rhetorical research. You might come across some of the challenges that I will explain right after this. But before that, let's have a recap. As we all know, rhetorical research is all about analyzing how well a spoken or written work accomplishes its purpose, just like AZLIN mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation, right? And this can be done by examining the techniques that the creator used to persuade. The challenges can be broken down into two categories, which are non-linguistics and linguistics. Remember that you don't have to state like I agree or disagree with the messages that the writer tried to convey, but all you have to do is discuss on how the writer makes that argument and whether or not the approach that they used is successful. So in order to do that, we have to have a deeper assumption in language, because rhetorical analysis or research serve to provide insight into the possible interpretations of text. So the first challenge that you might face is that your personal opinion might get in the way of your research, thus resulting in you resisting the assumption. The second challenge is that the result of a rhetorical analysis or research is not always positive. Let's say you conduct a rhetorical analysis, then your finding shows that the rhetorical device used by the writer or the author or speaker, for example, is effective. It's a success. However, sometimes the methods used by the writers, be it to inform or even to entertain the readers, are not effective. Or in other words, the argument that they try to bring forth is not compelling, is not persuasive. So we might need to suggest the more suitable approach to be used. Now, what does that mean? More readings, more research, and you might as well need to delve deeper into the issue that the writer tried to deliver. The next challenge is under the linguistic aspect. Sometimes we might get perhaps a different idea from the author or speaker. So one of the factors is language. We all use language differently, meaning that we perceive things differently. So we will find it hard to analyze an analogy, metaphor, and any other semantics form because they can carry a whole different meaning and connotation. So just imagine, how can we decide if the speaker succeed to persuade people or not if we don't have adequate knowledge in semantics or meanings?
Assalamualaikum and hi. My name is ZALIKHA binti AZWA and my metric number is 055825 and I'm from Group B. I'll be presenting an example of the communication study that utilizes rhetorical research.
First, let's take a look at this example. This is the communication study that we had chosen. You can click on the link in our presentation slides to access the PDF file. Next, let's see some of the bibliographical information of the chosen communication study. The study is titled "We Shall Fight: A Rhetorical Analysis of Churchill's Famous Speech" by Laurie Maguire. This study was published by Michigan State University Press in 2014. We chose this study after filtering the years and keywords of communication plus rhetorical research on Google Scholar. This study analyzed the speech by former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill in 1940. The author attempts to examine in detail one of the most famous and most important of these speeches, the "We Shall Fight" oration, or now known as "We Shall Fight on the Beaches" speech. The speech was given in the House of Commons on June 4, 1940, at the end of the evacuation of British and French troops from Dunkirk. The famous last paragraph of the speech is given an in-depth analysis that leads to some surprising results by the author. By the end of the study, the author concludes that Churchill uses a lot of rhetorical elements such as ethos, pathos, and logos during his speech to sway his people's perspective and build up their morale. So, for the last slides, why is the study a rhetorical research? Firstly, the author explains in the study on why the tone, language, examples, and verb choices were likely to resonate with the audience. This conforms with the definition of a rhetorical research. Second, the study examines the ways that the speakers sway their audience and accomplish their purposes. In this case, how Churchill appeals to his audience's patriotism and tugs their heartstrings by glorifying the British military actions in his speech. Lastly, his communication study was not based on the author's personal assumptions, as the author provided solid evidence to back up his arguments. That's all from us. Thank you.